So technically we're live now. We're just gonna do a bit of a pre-show while everyone gets in. We just make sure all the settings are okay and we don't break anything.
So in other words, King, don't put your finger on the wrong button by accident.
Oh man, that that'd be very unfortunate.
Is there a big button marked to delete all of your archive?
Oh, I'd be terrified if that button existed.
Oh no, this is why all our previous episodes are offshore in a Swiss bank account,
AKA on
where all of Kimmy's earnings probably are.
Oh god. Okay.
safer than Fort Knox, I tell you.
Yep, just. But yep, it's.
Social media sharing thingy.
Yeah, make sure the on-screen graphics are properly set up.
God, I love the quality of the rotating GIF.
Oh man.
See how fancy we are now? I can't even do a YouTube thumbnail and King's got rotating GIFs in the middle of an OBS recorded live stream. We've come a long way, people.
We've come a long way.
Gosh, you've got me thinking of the Star Trek Enterprise theme tune now.
To boldly go where no video podcast has gone before.
Oh, no, it was that Russell Watson one. It's been a long road, you know.
Man, that is a reference.
Okay.
I am quite happy to come on other people's podcasts and talk about Star Trek as well.
It's like, I don't know.
If you ever have to fill that need, you know who to call.
Yep. Okay. Make sure that Dre doesn't appear on screen as Cam, because...
Yeah, that would be quite a surprise. It's like, hey, you thought it was Cam Buckley here. Surprise!
Surprise!
It's like Cam, you're shorter and you're blacker.
Oh, Lord. Okay. See, let me check what the YouTube chat's saying.
We just have a Shuckle in the room.
Okay.
Hi, Shuckle. Nice to see you.
Who's Shuckle?
Friend of the show, Jason Poland. He supports us on Patreon. You know, one of the biggest supporters we have.
Might catch one of my Switch in tribute.
Yeah, how's Animal Crossing?
I'm late on the Animal Crossing wagon, unfortunately. Normally I have to remortgage my house to be able to afford a Switch game.
Oh, dear.
Says the man with 50 football jerseys in his back pocket. But hey, who's counting?
Yeah, but hey, the football jersey is going to be worth more in the future, I guess.
See, it's a collector's item. He tells himself as he cries before going to bed at night.
That's the thing I really hate, actually. The fact that you've got this death of physical copies of games, so you can't resell them for huge value in the future.
I know, it's all digital these days.
I
love that Vic is immediate in the chat saying, "Did the OBS settings save this time?"
Yes, they did save. Oh. No, when we do move the show fully to YouTube, it's pretty much we probably won't do the shows live on YouTube. I'll just record it and just edit it in post, because the turnaround time won't be long at all. It'll probably be 2 to 3 hours for me to edit a show, which is not bad.
That's brilliant. We could just keep it on listed for all the Patreon backers and then just release it live when the episode goes live.
Yeah, I mean, no, like, we would record it, like, just via OBS. It wouldn't involve YouTube until the edited version.
Oh, yeah, so you're just uploading the post-production version, basically.
Yeah, and it'd give me a lot more options, since I would be able to just record it in, like, 4K and do, like, crop it down and do, like, camera swaps and things like that, so it won't be a 4x4 box the entire time. A 2x2 box.
I fear that... Go on, Stu.
No, I was just going to say, which Lost on Pinewood Studios are you doing this in? Because it sounds very involved.
Yeah, that's why I rather do it in post than live, because it's hard to keep track of that while doing the show.
I was going to say, it was like... I don't think
the only fear I'd have pivoting to YouTube is that you've then basically only got YouTube's rules on content and monetization, whereas and also, like, if you stick with Spotify, then lots of people listen to it on the commute, and lots of people listen to it when they're doing something else, and it's a bit more difficult with YouTube, isn't it?
Well, we'd still be doing both, because basically the audio version of the show would just be me ripping the audio out of the YouTube version. Okay. Make sure this doesn't break. But yeah, there are also some other issues why I couldn't, why doing it live would be so difficult. It is more difficult than I thought it would be. Because one of the other issues is the music cues, where if we do the show live, we'd have to actually time the show to actual music cues live, and for you, Dre, to hear it, so say you do the introduction where you do the theme song, for you to hear the audio, I would have to play it through my microphone, and it would also play through my laptop, so it would be a weird reverb. Like, it happens sometime on Discord where, like, someone doesn't talk, and they're not using headphones, and their microphone picks up the call coming through the speakers. It would be something similar to that.
So it's like I'm back in an actual radio studio again.
Yeah, that's why rather not do that live, just do it in post, because it's easier for literally everyone involved.
Yeah, I think the answer is David Hasselhoff style, sing the theme tune.
Oh God. I could see everyone going for the unsubscribe button the minute we start singing our own theme song.
I don't think
no, you can release
that.
it as a single and get money from Patreon for it.
No one's gonna pay money for it. Oh man,
the day somebody pays money for that is the day that I marry Rihanna. That ain't happening, man.
Oh man.
Cool jerseys.
Well, as a start.
Let's see. Has anyone in the chat commented about a potential self-sung theme song?
Don't give them ideas. Seriously. Maybe episode 300.
Okay.
Just have RJ in the back just singing, "Oh, it's a road, oh, it's a rainbow road."
Oh man, and I'm like, what?
I don't want to give you some optimism here, King, but in the chat, Jason literally just said, and I quote, "The minute King starts singing, I'm putting my $10."
I told y'all.
with an eloquent response from Vince that says, "Is $10 enough?" So I guess it works both ways.
Oh no.
The chat is officially unsure. Vic says cancels Patreon. Shit. In asterisks.
The most divisive moment in the history of our podcast.
Vince saying maybe a subscriber count threshold.
No. No.
3,000 King sings La Marseillaise live on the show again.
Oh man.
Let's get it happening, people. Let's get it going. All we need is like 440 of you to subscribe.
Nah, it's gonna be the new movie club. Anytime we even mention it, something absurdly terrible happens that causes us to just not do it.
It's like we had like 3 or 4 movies planned in the off season until COVID happened.
No. We were just about to do the first episode on Talladega Nights. Then everyone announced, we're actually going back to racing.
But, oh, okay. We were just running out of original ideas. We were like, we're going to finally watch a movie. And I was like, it's like the movie club will never happen. It's now cursed.
Yeah.
It's been
the motorsport gods don't want it to happen. We're racing in a pandemic, so no one gets a movie club.
That's how you know it's never going to happen.
Planning to do a movie podcast.
Yes, we were planning to do a racing movie podcast during the downtime. Then the downtime stopped.
Yeah, we had like 3 or 4 planned, like Days of Thunder. Like we had Rush planned. We even had Driven planned. And
first time we did it, for some reason everyone was adamant that we had to do Driven first, and then we ran out of time.
Our subscribers are gluttons.
You've got to build up to the worst.
Right. You can't just you can't just stab them with a knife straight away. You got to twist it a little bit first, you know.
Some people just want to see the podcast burn.
Yeah.
I just want to see new fancy 2000s cars race through the streets of New York.
It was Chicago,
with no
actually.
helmets on.
Yeah, no helmets on.
And I think they were wearing tuxedos in the car, which is, I think, an underwear infringement.
Yeah,
was
the
that another
barcodes don't check out.
I was did Formula E give out another €5,000 fine in the direction of Lucas Degrassi in that case?
Honestly, 5,000 euros ain't that bad, considering that you could just suggest that another basketball player should leave his team and you get fined 50 grand.
Depends. Depends on the hot
Is that
wings
because
being
of tapping up? Is that like a fine for tapping up or something?
Yeah, for tampering. It's an NBA rule that you're not allowed to. It's to player tamper if you're a member of another team. So you can't suggest that a player on another team should leave his team for another team.
Which is what happened to Draymond Green when he was on TNT a couple of days ago, and as King alluded to, got fined 50 grand for it.
For implying that Devin Booker of the Phoenix Suns should leave his team for a team that could actually win. He didn't say that. Draymond Green didn't say that Devin Booker should leave Phoenix to play for his team, the Golden State Warriors. He just said that Devin Booker should just leave Phoenix.
That's the harshest 50 grand fine I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, it's like if you can't tell people to leave Phoenix, then you're not giving them honest advice, are you?
You're not wrong.
Oh man.
Oh man.
Also, I love that he just tweeted us saying Motorsport 101 needs a theme tune. Please make this happen, complete with the headbanging scene. Oh
man, can't wait for me to hand in my letter of resignation from Motorsport 101.
I'm now thinking, what would David Hasselhoff write as a theme for Motorsport 101? I think it would have lots of very laboured analogies about sitting in the hot seat and that kind of thing.
Oh yeah,
Ooh.
every double innuendo you can think of.
Yeah.
And we're just screaming, make it stop. Okay, almost got the graphics ready. We'll be starting in a couple minutes. So Eddie,
King's improved by 35.
oh my
Compared
lord,
to
we're doing like it's not like we're not live due to technical issues. There's a key difference.
Oh yeah, we actually have a stream this time. Yeah, King, you've really improved.
Oh my lord.
So this is basically we're not live because this is more complicated than priming a missile.
Yeah. With a missile, just turn a key and press a button. This is like.
Do we need 3 keys in the slot at the same time? Is that it? Like...
Oh no.
Welcome to Ryan Stanislav Petrov King.
I think the reason Dre you should watch Baywatch Nights is apart from the fact it's all on YouTube because it's just so batshit crazy. What basically happened was in season 1 of this, it was a detective procedural where David Hasselhoff, on his evenings off lifeguarding, would go and investigate crimes with a detective agency. And then in the second series, because the ratings were low, they pivoted to being like the X-Files, only with David Hasselhoff.
Yeah, it was.
This sounds amazing.
You're the first person to ever say this sounds amazing.
Oh, I was like, okay,
it's the most unhinged network TV series ever made.
Who greenlit that? Like, honestly, like that was the pitch, and somebody was like, "Here, take my money."
Oh no, that was not the pitch for the show. David Hasselhoff pitched this as like just another box standard PI, private investigation show, but no one wanted it unless David Hasselhoff was playing the same character that he played on Baywatch, so he was forced to adapt it into a Baywatch spinoff just so people would greenlight it.
Oh, but I don't know. Yeah, go on, Stu.
The best bit is before the pilot episode. There's a bit where he's standing on the beach in an open-chested jacket, explaining how nobody thinks lifeguards make good detectives, but he's going to prove everyone wrong or something.
Oh man, this is something else. Wowee.
Yes, and due to a variety of reasons, I'd be like, we're doing Tempelhof Nights is gonna be that's gonna be the name for this, as a Baywatch Nights parody, because no one thinks podcasters can do video.
King, this is the deepest reference ever.
I've got to thank you because after you called it Tempelhof Nights, I had to call mine Berlin Watch, so I appreciate that.
Berlin Watch. Oh man,
I'm tapping out.
the internet's a strange place. Oh, what? Did Dre literally tap out?
He did
No, hang on.
tap out.
There we go. I don't know why my camera suddenly went green for a second there.
Because
never
your
had that
camera
happen before.
literally tapped
If
out.
you're still priming the missile, I'll go and get some water.
Yeah, by the time you get back, I'll be ready to start.
All right.
Alrighty. I'll pour myself some apple juice.
Oh, man.
So that's how Tempelhof Nights got its name. That is deep cut, King, even by your standards.
It's deep cuts is what I'm always about.
For once, King, I completely agree with you. Chat says, hi, Jason says, okay, but where's Kit? Good question.
Oh, man.
Looks like bold of you to assume Dre would accept your resignation, King, says Vic.
Oh, man, I just throw it in the desk and leave.
This is like, I love the roast of King. Kenny responded saying, most Motorsport 101 episodes are just the roasting of King. Yeah, and then Vince was my personal favourite. My other favourite Baywatch spin-off, SpongeBob SquarePants.
Not wrong. Not wrong.
Technically, yeah, I can't argue with that one either.
Okay.
The thing I like about your podcast is that there's just so many woven in jokes that, like, because by this stage you're on about season 10 of it, and you can tell because it's just all in jokes these days.
Pretty much. I mean, this is our 6th season. I mean, if you want to go year by year in seasons we cover, our first year was 2014, like the latter end of 2014. We couldn't.
So it's a bit like it's a bit like the equivalent of season 10 of Friends, where they just had to look at someone and there'd be a laugh, you know?
Pretty much.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Like, you just literally just mention one driver, then a host on the show, and then Hugh laughter.
I mean, we had KTM win a MotoGP race this Sunday. What do you think's going to happen when we record that episode on Wednesday?
Oh my god. People were adding me on Twitter when KTM won that race.
Yeah, King, you made it.
Oh man,
the boys got over the line,
and it was literally the first MotoGP race this season I did not get to watch live.
My man was asleep. He woke up. He saw Brad Binder win a race, and then he went back to sleep again.
Yeah, it's like I'm not awake right now. This is not real.
See, when I heard his name was Brad Binder, I was waiting for someone to come up with like loads of puns about Binder keeps it organised, that kind of thing. But
Binder
no, did.
keeps it organised.
It's far too English for that here. How close are we, King?
Just a couple more seconds. Let me just close some things so my computer doesn't explode the minute we cut to video.
This must be actually what it's like to work as a real life sniper, because everyone thinks it's glamorous and romantic, but in fact, it's basically hours and hours of aiming at a tiny thing in the distance, isn't it?
Yep. Okay. And
it's calmed me down, and it's basically got me thinking about other stuff apart from Formula E. So I'm feeling in a light mood now, so it's good.
yeah, that is the goal of every pre-show, and we have video.
Yay!
It's like
Hello.
oh no! I just glanced at Twitter and I see Kelly adding me saying we need a theme soon. No,
Yeah.
no. I was in the moment. I thought it was in the YouTube chat. I didn't think it was in a fully public forum.
Can I sing the theme tune for Motorsport 101? Because I'm serious. I will record something for you.
Oh, I don't.
I almost want to make that happen just out of curiosity now, just to see what Stuart would come up with. Yeah.
Oh man.
I just really want to challenge my new MIDI keyboard.
Oh, now time to think of an intro, and a lot of things we could talk about. Well, reference in the intro, like Max Gunther going from winning a race to not being able to make it to turn 3.
The good for white.
I would say that I would say that this was the Jev Naissance, and we should. So, like, if we think of Jev as having like a reconnaissance, then presumably his Interstellar is going to be in the next 2 races.
Oh man, what's next 2 races? So what? We're back. Chile's the season debut. I think the next race after that is Mexico City. So I don't know. Want to know what's going to happen?
Saudi Arabia.
I think Saudi Arabia's round 3.
Right, yeah. Because it's really important to have Saudi Arabia in a season when it's unseasonably hot, isn't it?
Yeah, of course. Sounds practical enough.
Yeah.
That's why we just need to move the season finale. That's why you need to move the Saudi round to February, just like the World Cup.
Genius.
I'm really hoping that we have a night race in Saudi Arabia.
I just want a night race anywhere. Just give me a night race now.
only thing is that, like, if you've got a formula that's saving the planet, then asking them to import banks of floodlights, it's hardly saving the planet, is it?
We just need to find a place with naturally occurring floodlights.
Did you listen back to that?
Like, but
realise
like,
that's
a
the
fireplace.
Oh
Okay.
dear.
Oof.
It's actually quite refreshing not having to host one of these, and King can take all the intro duties. I can sit back and pour myself a drink. It's great. Yeah, you like it, King.
Oh man, I feel the pressure. The pressure's high.
All yours, buddy.
Well, to the surprise of no one, Antonio Felix Acosta, despite not winning either of the last two races, clinched the championship, largely due to just chaos everywhere else. And welcome to Night 3 of Tempelhof Nights. I'm joined by friendly neighborhood Andre Harrison's decided to stop by.
Yes, I thought the first day of an internet hiatus, I would celebrate by doing an internet live show. Of course, go me. Well thought out plan as always, Drake.
And we have a friend of the show, Stuart from Motion E.
Hello there. Really nice to be here.
It's nice to be here. This is not the last of the Tempelhof Night streams, because despite the championship being decided, we still have 2 races yet to run.
Are we calling this the Berlin Super Layout or the alternate layout now? Because we've had reverse Tempelhof, we've had forwards Tempelhof. Like, is this going to be? You have to come up with a creative name for the new one. Extended Tempelhof. You know.
So,
I've heard a few ideas. The one I like is Wobbly Boy.
Wobbly Boy.
That works.
Like, it does bear a similarity to a certain number of other circuits, and the best nickname I've heard so far is Tilkehoff, because it feels very Herman Tilke inspired.
That sounds about right.
But we're not here to talk about the 2 races that are going to happen next. We're here to talk about the 2 races that took place. And races 3 and 4 really put 1 and 2 to shame. Largely down to the fact that I think expectations were lowered after the first 2 races. It was Antonio Felix Acosta's championship to lose. But for race 3, he didn't qualify in the front row. Didn't qualify in the second row. Qualified all the way down in, 9th position?
Wasn't he a victim of the old Group 1 qualifying draw means you're pretty much boned lottery?
Yes, but we all assume that, it doesn't matter because you're in a Chichita. You could probably outrun everybody in any group.
So in other words, you've already gone full T-Cheater are basically the black and gold Mercedes for the year now. So it's like, doesn't matter what group they're in.
Oh yeah, they're OP. They're OP.
I think the other thing about Group 1 qualifying is it's not that much of a penalty in Tempelhof, because there are just so many races going on the same surface, whether it's reverse or forward, that actually you don't have that thing where it's an untouched, dusty track to begin with. It's not like it's not like Mexico City or Diriyah. You're not going to get too much dirt on the track between sessions. So that's the other reason why he wasn't penalised too much. And apart from that, they're just Techeetah's just really good, and they've got the attention to detail that most haven't got. And I think that's why they can do well in any conditions.
Yes. Pretty much they're in a position where they can do well in any condition. But when qualifying time came around, mistakes were made. Next thing we know, DaCosta's down in 9th, and Jean-Eric Verne is on pole, which really interesting in terms of the first 2 races. Jeff didn't have a good time.
That's putting it lightly.
Rough.
And I don't know. I felt that Jeff having a bad time contributed so much to what looked like the televised breakup of a friendship there. I don't know how you guys felt, but like I felt watching those first two races, which I know we're not talking about, but it's important to bring it into context.
Yeah.
I was watching like Hamilton-Rosberg 2014, and this would be the end of things and the start of something far worse and darker. But like, and actually, and I think this is just an example of good PR. I'm not actually sure that the rift between Jev and Antonio has been fully healed, but I think it's been healed enough that Jev could feel he's the bigger man by showing magnanimity after those last two races that we saw. But yeah, I think it was important for Jev and for his ego in a way to actually win that race and to be on pole as well.
Yeah, I think it did mean a lot. I think a lot of the animosity was that technically at that earlier on in the week they were title rivals, and after it got to the point where Jev was essentially mathematically eliminated from the championship, that eased tensions where he's mainly looking backward down the standings, not forward.
Mostly because of that enormous dogfight we'd have the second in the end, where Stoffel Van Dorn was up there, Lucas de Grassi was in contention, Jev was in there, Gunther was in the pile. It was after Gunther won round 8. He leapt up to second place because of the sudden surge of points he got for winning that one. So yeah, you're absolutely right. By the time he got through round 6 and 7, Da Costa had pretty much had one arm, had one hand and 4 fingers on the championship already, whereas Jev was probably just thinking, you know what, let's just get the team's title taken care of, just wrap it all up in a nice little bow and see if we can get second overall. And that's pretty much what Jev did in the second part of this sextuple head.
But speaking about round 8, race 3 at Tempelhof, Jev started on pole, was in position to win the race, and he had essentially a race-long scrap with Maximilian Gunther. It wasn't the best of days when Jean-Eric Vergne was effectively in wheel-to-wheel combat for half an hour straight. It felt like Andretti BMW had their game plan. They knew Gunther had the pace to beat Jev, but they were smart. They picked their moves on when to attack, and they pretty much ran Jev into a point where he had, used up most of his usable energy and had fallen behind the delta to finish the race. And that's when Gunther realized that was his moment to strike, passed Verne, and never looked back.
Yeah,
it was actually.
It's interesting as well because the BMW Andretti pit were him to wait until the last lap, or at least they were implying, this is going to go until the last lap, and he chose that pretty much exact point 3 laps before the end to make the pass. I think that just speaks a lot to the instincts that he's got, and it says a lot for the fact that in a way he's got that bravery and assertiveness, even at I think 23 now he is, to make those calls ahead of his pit. But the other thing is I think BMW and definitely Andretti as well needed that, because they've been early season bolters this last couple of seasons, both seasons since BMW actually took over, and I think they needed to prove that they can develop the car well enough to get the car, to give someone a winning car in the closing races, even if they're not quite ready and there yet to challenge for a title.
Yeah, it's just knowing that you have the pace to win is probably the most vital part of any title campaign, because it's the hardest thing to develop on your car, just being fast. It's reliability is something that, comes with time. You'll get to that point eventually, but speed is the hardest to find.
And it was that speed that that enabled them to basically push Jev around. They were like, okay, if you're going to win this race, you're going to do this on our terms, and that's as we saw in the Formula 1 race this past weekend with Max Verstappen, if you've got the pace, you can bully everybody around, and just like we saw the one Red Bull give Merckx a bloody nose. at Silverstone. It was the exact same principle with Gunther in race 3 at Berlin, where it was, I'm faster than you. I know it's hard to pass here. I'm going to make you burn your usable energy and strike at the end when the time was right. And that's exactly how Gunther won that race. And it was the way he picked Verne apart there and pretty much bullied Verne into backing off at the end of the race was brilliantly done.
Yeah. Though talking about,
I think we've got to give respect. I think we've got to give respect to the racecraft as well, because he genuinely sized up Jeb like a boxer. He didn't look overzealous like he has done in some previous Formula E race, particularly at Dragon last season. He just waited and waited until exactly the right moment, and it was the kind of thing where I don't know if we're going to talk about And We Go Green later on, but Sam Bird said in And We Go Green, with Jev, you've got to wait until that one moment per race when he's not expecting something, and if you miss that, then you've missed it. And I think Gunter just knows when to find that moment.
Yes, and like talking about waiting for the right moment, besides the leading two, in third, Robin Friends was stalking the leading two. He had the pace to keep up with him, but he was clearly keeping his distance. And when Verne fell back, that's when he made his move to try to go for the win and attack Gunther. And Gunther drove defensively as well as he drove offensively. And we ended up getting the second closest finish in series history out of it.
I was just about to say, wasn't that like the closest or one of the closest margins of victory the series has seen? I can't remember the last. Like, what was number one on that list? I wonder, because I think it was about a 10th in this case. Yeah, 0.128. I just double check my notes on that one. But yeah, you're absolutely right. It reminded me a lot of a Moto 3 race where it was like, I'm going to park my car here, see if you can find a way around it, and Max did everything by the book. It was perfectly legal. It was good, hard defense. He parked his car in areas where Robin just did not have enough of a pace advantage to figure out a way around, and it was the perfect defense. It was as simple as that. Robin tried as much as he could. He did have more energy. Max had to ease off a little bit because he was at 0.0 when he went over the line. We've already seen that rule come into play a couple of times in this Berlin in endurance season, finale season, if you want to call it that. In this little mini season, we've already seen that rule come into play 2 or 3 times over. But even though Max had to ease off, he got it right on the nose. And yeah, second closest finish in the history of the series.
Yeah, I think he did fantastically. But Friends really, he didn't come from nowhere, but it was a stealthy race from him. And I think that's something you get in Formula E a lot more than you do in other forms of motorsport. The driver who manages his energy very carefully and is able to challenge for the lead in the closing laps. I think it's something special about Formula E, the fact that you've got that energy management element, because Friends was the one who seems to manage it the best through that race.
Yeah, because especially in these cars, there's a big difference between racing someone and racing alone. So if you know you can't get around 2 cars at once, it's better sit back, conserve that energy, and attack when you know you could use it effectively.
Yeah. I'd like to mention briefly as well how well Andre Lotterer did in the Porsche, because Lotterer is talked down a lot by people, mostly because in his 3 seasons with Techeetah, he was actually no, it's 2 seasons with Techeetah, he was slower than Jev. Yeah, but actually he's gone to Porsche, and what they've asked him to do is the experience to provide a benchmark of roughly where the car is in terms of performance, and he's done that and more. And what I loved about Lotterer in all of the races actually was how his defensive driving ability is superior to most of the field. He's able to legally keep a car behind really by any which way and break the rules or get a bad reputation for himself, like Nick de Vries, for example.
Yeah, because that was sort of like the other race-long story thread, where we had, Lauder and DaCosta both making their way up through the field, and it was mainly Lauder out front most of the time when they were working their way through the field. DaCosta tried a couple times and couldn't get around Lauder until the very end of the race.
Mm. It's amazing. It was actually kind of off camera because we were so focused on the battle for the win between Gunther and Franz, we didn't actually see both T-Cheetahs and Lotta fighting for the final spot on the podium at the same time. It was a little bit off camera, so I don't envy the TV director on that one when we had two significant fights on the final lap at the same time, and one of the best Formula E race finishes I think we've ever seen. So it was incredible stuff to see, and you're right, Da Costa maybe keeping one eye on the championship, maybe was a bit more conservative about the whole idea. Maybe not throwing his car. Like, I mean, we know it. Guys are going to be aggressive in this series. You kind of have to be in some cases to get around and make hard passes stick. But compared that to Lotta, who's racing for Porsche and pride, compared to Da Costa, that still obviously must still have clearly been thinking championship to only make a move if dead certain. You can see the contrast in that, but Da Costa still came out in the middle of that T-Cheetah Porsche sandwich in the end and still salvaged the 4th place, which in the context of Tempelhof, not a bad result at all.
Yeah, like other,
particularly.
Yeah, like other notable events during the race where, Lauder's teammate, Neil Yanni, got taken out in a collision earlier on. I think like roughly 10 laps in with Sergio Sette Camera, the temp driver at Dragon. That was an interesting
Every driver is a
incident.
temp driver at Dragon.
Very true.
Not wrong. Yeah.
Jay Penske.
I think we talked before about Jay Penske and his revolving door of drivers, but it is getting. Honestly, I think we all expected it because Brendan Hartley had WEC, and you could make a strong argument that this got in the way, but people think there was something else to it this time. I was reading in the race saying that there was some friction. So, well, it's no surprise at Dragon, but it's just really a shame that Hartley couldn't do any of the rounds.
Yeah, it was a shame that Hartley couldn't do any of the rounds, and I'd say the biggest arrow you could point at, maybe Hartley could have done some of the rounds is that James Collado is here. He's going to miss the last 2 rounds because he has to go to Spa for the WEC 6-hour race there, but he still stuck around and did the first 4. It says a lot that Hartley was like, no, I'm leaving now.
I felt so sorry for James Collado. The moment he announced that he was leaving Jaguar, which was after last night's race, he immediately changed back his Twitter profile picture to the Ferrari and changed his Twitter bio from world champion and dad to world champion with AF Corsa and dad. And I just think he's back in his happy place now, and I feel really sorry for him in a sense because he was thrown in the deep end with Jaguar. Almost no one expected him to actually get that drive. And when he did, I think many fans expected it to be Alex Lynn and were sorry it wasn't. And also, you're up against Mitch Evans. And as a rookie, you're onto a loser against Mitch Evans. I thought Collado did the best he could, really.
Yeah, he did the best he could.
It was a decent job, but You ain't got a prayer against Mitch Brah, as we like to nickname him on this show, because Mitch is one of the best dudes in the field, and he's really, really made a home for himself in Formula E. And like as King alluded to, Brendan Hartley could not wait to get up out of the paint. It was pretty clear because, as you said, as Collado was walking proof, he could have easily done both, and he could have easily done 4 races out of the 6 in this series, but Brendan wanted out now, and it just adds more fuel to the fire about the reputation of Jay Penske as a team boss.
As you've said that, as you've said that, I'm really interested to know your opinion. Now we've said that anyone against Mitch Evans is onto a loser. What about Sam Bird next season? I think it's going to be like Griezmann to Barcelona. I think he's going to find it really hard.
Yeah, good luck with that. I would say because that is Mitch's team as far as I'm concerned, and going into a new team with one established player in it already is a notorious challenge. I've said it before, like people have asked me before, like Dre, would you like to see Max Verstappen in a Mercedes? And part of me wants to say, well, no, because if he goes in there against Lewis Hamilton, he's going to lose against the guy that's got 8 years of experience with the team already. You kind of walk it into a situation where you're probably going to lose. So yeah, it's not an ideal scenario. I mean, I don't know what you make of that, King, but I think the impetus is on the guy who's with the team already compared to the newcomer, even if it is Sam Bird, who again is one of the series' most tenured driver and one of its greatest.
Yeah, I'd agree with you where it's like Sam Bird's without a doubt one of the fastest drivers in the series, but Mitch Evans has the rapport with the engineers and mechanics. Like he just has the experience working in that system. So he automatically has an advantage by default. Like, they don't even have to actually lean towards favoring him. Just by the experience of him being there already is an advantage. Let's see. But there was, before we move on to the next race, there was a funny moment where they were recovering Cameron's Dragon, and they had it up on the winch, but they didn't loop it through properly, and it just fell off and dropped.
Gosh. Now, do either of you remember, I think it was 1995, it was the final race for Simtech, when they dropped Jos Verstappen's Simtech off the back of a truck in Monaco?
I remember seeing this on video a couple of years ago. Obviously, I was being born in '92. I wasn't quite of compos mentis to remember that directly, but I do remember seeing that on video a couple of years ago. It probably was quite reminiscent of that, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And I'm fully aware that, having said that, I now come across like Peter Windsor making analogies from 1975 or something.
Oh, God. But yeah, the next day, which was yesterday for us, race 4 in Tempelhof, round 9. Qualifying happened. Jeb puts it on pole again, but this time Antonio qualifies second. The closest title rival at this point was Maxi Gunther, and Maxi ended up finishing all the way down in 21st in qualifying. So it seemed like we were running into the usual thing that we've dealt with so far in all these races, where Techeetah, no matter what they do well in qualifying and the race. And whoever's chasing them in the championship, second, third, or fourth, they end up just having the worst day imaginable.
No, go ahead, Dre.
I was going to say, like, this is like if you ever want it summed up, like the antithesis of Max Gunther, where he goes and wins spectacularly in race 3 in Berlin, a day prior, and one day later his race ends at turn 3.
Yes.
I remember. Yeah, so don't cut you, but I remember they said that was like the win he had was only his 3rd points finish of the season, where the other 2 was also a win and a 2nd place.
Yep.
Like, Max Gunther swings up and down like a pendulum, and it's ridiculous. If you get him in clear air, he's brilliant. If you get him put in the midfield, he's had it. And that pretty much summed it up, where the man second in the championship basically is out early doors, and that pretty much sealed the title for ADAC, the cluster in the end.
So if we take your observation to its limits, Dre, and if we say in clean air he's great, but in the midfield he's not, he's not Electro Schumi, as Jack Nicholls said. He's more Electro Vettel, isn't he?
You had to go there, didn't you?
I do.
I mean, you're probably not wrong, given that Sebastian Vettel has never won a Grand Prix from lower than 3rd on the grid. So yeah, you're probably right in that on that one. As a matter of fact, as if winning from the middle rows is easy or something. But no, you're probably not wrong there.
Yes.
But you're probably right on that front. Yeah, it's.
I think that the thing is, Max Gunther will learn from this season, and I'm kind of taking all of these races, especially as soon as Antonio pulled whatever it was, 64 points ahead after the 2nd race, sort of taking them all as being a warm-up and a trailer for next season. I think BMW Andretti didn't have the experience of winning before last season, and they only won, I think it was 1 race that season, maybe 2, I can't remember anymore. But anyway, so coming into this season, they're a bit more competitive, but I can't believe that you've got BMW, Porsche, and Mercedes all wanting their first title. I just don't think DS Techeetah are going to be getting 1-2s next season, and it doesn't matter how much you've got the team boss pushing a team to say, well, look, we've got to develop like we did last season. There is a certain amount of complacency that comes in, and I think the other teams have just got to pray for that right now, haven't they?
Like, some ways they do, where it feels like because Techeetah's lineup is essentially 2 number 1 drivers, that their pressure to do better comes mainly from the other side of the garage, not the rest of the field.
Could be.
Yeah.
So who do we think has the best chance of using this as a springboard to next season? I'd probably go with Nissan, because I think Buemi still has all of the driving talent that he did when he won the title. And I think that Nissan have made the most gains in developing that car during the shutdown with whatever magic they can do remotely. So I think Nissan, but what do you guys think? I mean, obviously we've got the Mercedes cap there.
Yeah. Just to quickly go back and explain what happened to Max Gunther in the fourth race. On the first lap, on the run between turns 3 and 4, Oliver Turvey in his 333 ended up slowing earlier than Gunther expected. Gunther ran right into the back of him and rode off his car. Though, I think I agree with you, Stuart, where the biggest improvement, like the team that's slated to have like the biggest step up in performance, is probably Edam's Nissan. And in a post-race interview yesterday, Buemi talked about how effectively Nissan was going to write off this season anyway. This was supposed to be the development year for their twin motor concept, but obviously that got scrapped at the end of the prior season. And again, they had to start from square one again, and they didn't really expect to achieve that much this year. And by the results, they are clearly doing well. So if this is a rebuild year for Nissan, I don't know what an actual year is going to look like.
Yeah, like it's funny you mentioned that, because I was also going to say Nissan Edams, and more specifically Ollie Rowland, because I think he's had a very, very good season under the radar. And he looked very, very racy out there during Berlin, even though he kind of got caught out at the end there, which I'll get to in a minute. But yeah, I was going to say Nissan Edams. I think they looked the most promising coming into pre-COVID, I guess you could say. The way the car was developing. Buemi is an elite driver in the field. You know, he's won a championship. He knows how to lead the charge. He knows how to win races. You know, he's been a vocal point of the series for over half a decade now. So, you know, I think I look at the teams around them and I go, yeah, I think if I was going to pick a team that could tick a lot of boxes to form a challenge, it probably would be Nissan Edams, I would say. But hey, part of it is not knowing what's going to happen. And we were probably making the same conversation about BMW like a year ago, so you never quite know what's going to happen here. So that's part of the beauty of the series.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to come back to you on Ollie Rowland as well. I personally have not ever seen Ollie Rowland as a title challenger in the same way that obviously Buemi has been. But then the truth is, you're never a title challenger until you are. And you know, there was a time when Jenson Button was not a title challenger, and well, that happened. So I think all he needs to do is string together some good results at the start of the season, and he is. So let's see what happens next year.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
only 50 points out of P3, just carry on, Ken.
Yeah, and again, like, just Gunther's an example of how it just takes a couple good results to be in contention for the title. Where, again, we mentioned he only had 3 point scoring finishes this year and was second in the championship. So anything can happen in Formula E, and it usually does.
No good.
I'd say another interesting event that happened this year is Lucas Degrassi finally got comeuppance for his aggressive driving so far in the Tempelhof bubble, where he has been noticeably very aggressive, willing to barge his way past any contenders, just to try to make his way through the field. Like in this race, he started 12th, ended up finishing 6th. But on his way to 6th place, he had to get around fellow countryman Felipe Massa. And Felipe gave him a taste of his own medicine into turn 1.
I think everyone was surprised when Felipe got the penalty for that, actually, because it looked cut and dried like Degrassi's fault, but Degrassi didn't think that. He told the commentators that afterwards. So maybe the stewards saw an angle that we couldn't see from TV.
Yeah, it's...
Yeah, I thought it was a slam dunk penalty for Lucas the other way, to be honest. I was actually quite shocked. It was a pretty bad weekend for questionable stewarding decisions after the MotoGP race as well, with Johan Zarco and Paul Espargaro. So yeah, maybe there was something in the air in the stewards' offices this weekend. But no, I thought that was a slam dunk for Lucas the other way. I didn't think, like, I looked at that and I was like, Felipe? What?
Yeah,
I thought that was Felipe.
It seemed like it was less down to who caused the incident and who was worse off afterwards, which kind of doesn't make sense.
No, it's like, do you think what the stewards trying to balance the books, maybe?
Maybe.
It's like, he got away with it, punish him. I don't know.
I think the other thing it speaks to is that, and I don't think this is the fault of the TV director, because unlike in F1 where they seemed to miss every single Carlos Sainz overtake last season, in Formula E you've got so much action to focus on that really all they can do is try and take a snapshot of what's happening at any time, whereas the stewards and Scott Elkins, the race director, have got all of the angles all of the time, and we haven't got that. But with media operating remotely, it leads to a situation where people ask questions based on what they've seen from one camera angle, and it's the wrong question. So after race 8, I think it was, when you had the incident between Sims, Sete Camara and Collado, Sims was asked what his viewpoint was on the incident, and the question was asked from the point of view of the incident that you caused, and Sims had to say, I wasn't involved in any incident, so I don't know what you're talking about. So again, that was an example of the camera angle playing tricks a bit.
Yeah, because it looked like Alex Sims made contact with another car from the camera angle, because you just see the cars overlap, you don't actually see them make contact. And, you know, after, like, you know, based on what all the drivers involved in the accident said afterwards, it was clear that they never made any contact.
Yeah. So I don't know how they can improve the world feed, because I don't think it's practicable right now to have this, and have a Digital Plus package where people pay an extra subscription for all the angles, and I don't think it would make much difference at the end of the day, because you've got 45 minutes to write up your race report if you're media. So it's just really a question of the TV directors doing their best to capture what action there is, but you're always going to miss something, particularly in a 45-minute race.
Like, it was fairly easy to tell on the world feed that they were limited in the resources they had, because it was they didn't have multiple angles of many corners. A lot of places they had just static cameras, probably because they couldn't have enough crew to operate all the cameras. It's sort of one of the difficulties of racing in a bubble.
Yeah, definitely. They were a bit limited for camera angles. It's like you had the big one of the overall shot of the hairpin, and then you had a couple of onboards, one camera on the sidewall, and that was about it. And honestly, I watched it 3 or 4 times before I even got half of the full idea of what had happened. And we didn't get that until like deep into the safety car period, and they were cleaning up the mess. Obviously they're a little bit limited in that regard for obvious reasons, but it didn't help from a viewer standpoint watching that.
And I've got to give huge respect to. I'm not actually sure which of the photographers I know were actually there, but like the photographers who've been capturing media photos from Formula E, considering the number of passes was reduced, they seem to have caught some amazing angles and some amazing pictures. And well, I've seen some really great ones being used. So I think the people who were there done a great job, but it's kind of an unwanted consequence of COVID, as if there were any wanted consequences. The fact that independent media and independent photographers, if you're media, you can still write a race report based on TV. If you're a photographer, really, your career is done for if you don't get back racing soon. So, I think the people who were there did a fantastic job.
Yeah, most certainly. To quickly go through the championship standings, Antonio Felix Acosta clinched the championship. He's sitting pretty on 156. Second is Jean-Eric Verne, who's pulled out somewhat of a lead on the rest of the field, sitting second on 80 points. Third is Maxi Gunther on 69, as well as Lucas Di Grassi. Gunther has the tiebreak. Double nice. Gunther has the tiebreak because he has 2 wins, and Di Grassi has none. Buemi is 2 points behind them on 67. Mitch Evans is on 65. Andre Lauder in 7th on 59. Stoffel Van Dorn on 57. Oliver Rowland on 54. And Sam Bird in 10th on 52. So you could tell that between Gunther in 3rd all the way back down to Bird, it is a very tight competitive field. There's a lot to play for in the upcoming races for a lot of people.
You look at Jeff, out of his 80 points, 38 of them, like 48 of his 80 points have come in the last 2 races.
Yeah.
So all you got to do is, if you could put together 2 decent results, you might just nab 3rd in the championship, because it's just been so up and down, and the field is all beating each other up. If you look at current form, Alex Sims is there in 11th place, having been as high as I think 3rd earlier on in the year. He has 3 points in his last 4 races since coming to Berlin. Yeah, he's looked extra struggle-licious, and he's still only 20 points away from 3rd place.
Yeah.
So, and we know that Andretti has the pace to challenge, if not win. So it really can come down to one mad race that can make an entire season look salvageable. Fun times.
Fun times.
I think we've also seen this season be a particularly bad one for Mahindra. Pascal Wehrlein only had 14 points before the shutdown and before he was forced out of the team. D'Ambrosio's had some good races, actually, but he's only got 19 points. And Alex Lynn, in spite of arguably being the star of all the Berlin sextuple race series so far, in terms of being in places where really he has no right to, given that car, Alex Lynn's been superb, but he's only got 2. So, yeah, of the teams having a bad year, I'd say Mahindra's done below expectations, and considering they've got that Mercedes power plant for the first time, Venturi probably could say that they've had a below standards year as well.
Yeah, because even if you just take a quick glance at the team standings, Porsche is down in 8th on 59, and then you have a massive drop-off down to Venturi on 39 and Mahindra on 35. Not good seasons for them. And though it is competitive at the top of the team standings, where Nissan have really salvaged the year in Berlin, they've moved their way up to 2nd. Obviously, there's no way for them to catch Techeetah, because Techeetah has almost doubled their points. But BMW and Andretti are only 3 points behind them on 118. And it seems like we're actually going to have a very interesting fight for 2nd in the team's championship.
Yeah, definitely. Again, I mean, we're making predictions here, and we've seen that it's stupid to make predictions in Formula E, but based on the gains they've made during the quarantine period, again, I would go with Nissan for 2nd. If you look at what they did at the end of last season, I think Buemi actually got 2nd in the championship there. Just the way that Buemi and Roland performed in that race 9. I think they've got the goods to get second place over the line.
Yeah, I like it feels like it's going to be Nissan, but all it takes for BMW is just to have that one on day, and then second is theirs.
Again, swings up and down. Like there's been 2 Berlin races out of the 4 where BMW's left with 0. And there's also been 2 races where Nissan's picked up 25 points. So it's been very, very strange. Who knows? We might get another messy situation like we got in the latest race on Sunday, where they tried the old switcheroo at the Nissan Edam's apartment, and then Roland got clipped at the end by Nick de Vries sending it. So who had a podium, coughed the podium, ended up in 5th. Yeah. So that was fun.
And I really would love to talk about switcheroos, because a couple of them happened in that race. Obviously, Techeetah did the switcheroo, and they were successful at it, unlike in Mexico City, where it didn't work. A couple of teams have tried these cycling-style switcheroos, where the idea is to ride the slipstream and use a lead-out guy and then take it over. But I think we've seen in other forms of motorsport, it doesn't often work. And I think Techeetah have got really lucky in it working well for them once now.
It works because they're the best frigging car. They can get away with shit like that. Their margin of error is probably a lot bigger.
Like the old, like really, really old, I think predates the show old, IGP motto we used to have, where there's no bad strategy if you have a fast car. Every strategy is good.
Yeah, pretty much. It's why we pushed for 0 stop races back in the days of Tom Stanley's league. So Tom, if you're listening, we ain't forgotten. Yeah. Like when you've got a fast car, it opens up so many more possibilities, and that's probably why TT has been able to make it work, and no one else really has.
But
it felt like an illogical switcheroo, except that they were trying to do something for Jev, and they were trying to give Jev that boost of confidence, because if you were to look at it, if you wanted to make sure Antonio won the title, you would give him a 1-car cushion between him and the 3rd place car. But they didn't do that. They put him back in the jaws of the 3rd place car, and in the end he secured the title anyway. But there was added danger from doing it that way, so they didn't need to do that. I think that was the contention.
I'd argue the opposite, where if you're the car, in the slip, you do get to save energy, somewhat marginally, but it's still some energy. So, if there's a threat near the end of the race, you do have that deployable energy you can use to play defense.
Certainly.
Ooh, but yeah, 2 races to play for, and hey, maybe Mercedes can turn things around and get second in the championship. They're 22 back. It's not a unrealistic margin to close, but that would be a difficult margin to close. But also,
again, another team that's got pace.
Yeah, they've had problems with the pace. I gotta give it to Van Dorn and De Vries. They've literally driven like madmen to make up for the lack of pace. It's
I think the team that seems to be sort of floating in mid-table and not doing a lot right now, and a bit unclear of its direction, is probably Audi. De Grassi's obviously been there since the start, and he was lobbying for Daniel Abt at the end of last season, where it looked like Nico Muller would get the seat. But as much as I'm a fan of Daniel Abt and I like him, and I'm glad that he got the Neo drive, especially after what happened, I just wonder if Muller coming in at the start of the season might have shaken things up, because now that Rast's come in, De Grassi all of a sudden seems to have, well, okay, he's had those questionable incidents, but in terms of, he seems to have just upped his game a little bit in terms of going for speed and trying things. And yeah, Audi just look like they don't have the powertrain to compete, and that's really not something that you expect from Audi over the years in Formula E, is it?
Yeah, where it seemed like they had the power unit you wanted to be driving. It's somewhat clear that there has been a fall off, though obviously they still do supply a team where the Virgins have also been over the place, where Robin Friends, despite finishing second in the first race of the second doubleheader, he couldn't even start the second race because his car wouldn't start. There are issues with the Audi system. Oh, but
we talk about Rene Rast as well, because he came in for not his debut because he'd driven for Aguri before in the Gen 1 era, but he came in for his Gen 2 debut, and yeah, he looked pretty washed to begin with, but in race 9 he was well on the pace and he was doing well. How do you keep him for next season? I would say that they've got a gem there. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, Rene Rast is definitely a reliable and loyal Audi factory driver. Like, I would be very surprised if they didn't keep him for next season, to be honest.
Agreed. I think his driving style suits the series. I think he's got that rough experience from DTM to go over there, so I think he has a good idea of what the series entails, the nature of the series, and he's always been fast as heck. I mean, we nickname him Rennie Fast on our Discord server for good reason, and any other word that rhymes with fast that you can probably think of. So, yeah, I think Rene's a good fit for what Audi's looking for. They've already got one of their bankable drivers in Lucas Di Grassi. We all know how good he can be when he's got the right setup underneath him, and I think Rast is a good fit for that, if he can keep his nose clean.
Yes, if he can keep his nose clean. Though, we did get to see the return of Daniel Abt. Well, I say return, he didn't technically miss any races, but it's Daniel Abt has, whether it's, you could argue that it's just him adjusting to being at Neo 333, but he clearly lacks pace compared to Oliver Turvey. And in it already the slowest car in the field. He outqualified him on. Yeah, he outqualified him. I forgot how many times, but I think they might be split 2-2 in terms of qualification. Mm-hmm. Actually, looking back through the list quickly. Yeah, split. Okay, so it's 3-1 in Daniel's favor, though one of, like, in the one that put him over last race, it was very close between the two drivers in what is, one of the slowest power units in the field. I don't want to say that in terms of performance that it, like, in terms of performance, it is a bit lackluster. That I'm not expecting him to blow Oliver Turvey out of the water, out of the box, but I'm expecting him to, out-qualify, Turvey by more than a handful of tenths for someone who's been in the series for so long at a frontline team. It's...
Yeah, I was going to say, like, I think part of that is because I think Oliver Turvey's just a good driver that just happens to be for a poor team. He might be Formula E's equivalent of George Russell, where it's like, we know the Nio team has been, extra struggle-licious for the last couple of the seasons now, and Turvey's been very loyal to that team, and often for questionable reasons. I think, Turvey, you can do better than this. And you do realise this, right? But I think part of that is just because Turvey's just good, and I think he's been under the radar and underappreciated in Formula E's time. I know I sound like Hazel saying this, but I've always rated Turvey as a driver, and if for Daniel Abt, as much as he did have a lot of good time in a headlining team, it was almost always him playing second fiddle to Lucas, who was the real vocal point of the Audi team. I know Abt had his own moments in his own right, but the majority of the time, he was a great accidental number 2 in that system. So I think there's a lot of that at play here when it comes to this Nio situation. But it's always hard to get a true lead on somebody in a bottom of the field team.
I'd agree with you there a little bit, and I'd say with Turvey, the thing is, he's always going to show any team exactly how fast their car could be, but he's not going to get you some kind of amazing whiz bang result where you think, oh blimey, where did that come from? So like he's a good consistent benchmark. He's not kind of Ollie Rowland where, you know, you think, oh wow, where did that come from? Saying that, you know, Mexico season 4 he did very nearly win, so he does occasionally have great races in the locker. But I just think the story with Neo is really sad, because I interviewed the ex-boss of Neo, Jerry Hughes, about a year and a half ago, and he was very clear about what they need to do. They need to move the factory to, you know, so that they're all on one premises. They need to, you know, keep the funding coming in and keep the engineering team together. But instead, the Chinese operation did exactly the opposite. They decided to completely get rid of the management team, bring in new consultants. I think the Spanish team that worked with Mahindra the previous season, so the only thing they really kept was Turvey from the previous Neo operation. Neo's just a sponsor now, and it just doesn't really square with me. So Neo's putting in massive amounts of money into being the Chinese Tesla, and they're listed on the I think the LA Stock Exchange or the Nasdaq, and yet they're not putting the funding they need to into Formula E, which is supposed to be the sport where they can showcase what they can do. And yeah, you mentioned they've got the slowest powertrain. That's a Season 5 Dragon powertrain. So I would like to see Neo China really put the big bucks in to get them back to where they should be. I guess the fear is that maybe Formula E's past that stage where niche manufacturers can do that. And in which case, well, let them sell up to, I don't know, Volvo or Polestar or something.
Yeah, it seems like Neo are not going to invest into the team. Like they're pretty much a placeholder title sponsor until 333 can find a new sponsor to replace them. Like it's fairly clear that 333 are not going to manufacture their own power units, and unless they get a factory deal with another manufacturer, they're going to be a customer for a while longer.
And I just wonder how much this is an expression of kind of the value of a franchise slot, because ever since Formula E went to the 12 franchise model, basically you've got a team there holding down the franchise slot and waiting for someone to buy it up, because they know that if they leave, then they're going to lose a lot of value there, and I can see their point of view.
Yeah, they rather sell their team to someone else than quit and have their franchise revert back to Formula E, who just pick someone for that 12th team slot.
She reminds me a lot of when I googled the words "why does Sacramento" and the first entry is "why does Sacramento have an NBA team?"
Says it all, doesn't it?
Yes, but it's you know, gonna be interesting for them going into the future, though. One thing I should mention before we leave is over the past, over since the Tempelhof bubble started, Formula E has been doing their own sort of mini documentary series called 9 Days in Berlin, which it's like a just behind the scenes thing. Each of the episodes are fairly short. They're like 4 to 5 minutes long. And it goes behind the scenes into like various aspects of organizing the races and how the drivers handle the races themselves. Though I do find it interesting in episode 1, before any racing at all, Antonio pretty much flat out said if he doesn't win the first race, the season's over. How times have changed in a week.
A week later, we're seeing like Jeff saying, "Bring it in, big man," as DaCosta jumps in his arms after celebrating his drive championship. It's amazing how things change in a week in this sport, doesn't it?
Yes. Though it's weird because 9 Days in Berlin, despite this, like, it's, 4 to 5 minute long episodes, but the production value is weirdly, absurdly high for something that's only 5 minutes long at most, where it's clearly, like, very, very high quality cameras, and, just the establishing shots that they use, and, like, all the like, it is feature-length documentary levels of quality, despite there being, like, I tried to look up, like, is Formula E producing this in-house? Is an outside company doing this? I can literally find no information about it. It is weird.
It's had a real tendency to go the extra mile on the kind of media that you don't really expect a motorsport formula to do. And Go Green being an example, but like with this, I can imagine it being a bit hipster and a bit art house, because Formula E is like that. It likes to go for the slightly weird angle on things, and I'm looking forward to seeing this. I think you were the first person to tell me about it.
Yes, I assume this is the first time a lot of people are hearing about this, because the episode they put out today literally has less than 800 views.
Oh no!
It is weird that basically that this whole thing's happening, and no one's actually watching it, it feels weird.
That does feel weird. 800 views. We've had videos on this channel do more than that. I mean, that's alarming. And a little bit sad, actually.
Yes.
Well,
like,
and also, I think it's worth asking. Like, is Formula E one of the forms of motorsport that has fewer subscribers than Chain Bear? Because I know there's a few.
Let me check what their numbers looking like.
Hang on. Because to be fair, a lot of people bracket.
555,000.
I know that Chain Bear and the WEC and more than the W Series put together in IndyCar.
Yeah. So, like, I assume, I think Chain Bear might have more by, like, a small margin. But, like, Formula E has a lot of YouTube subscribers, mainly because they stream the races in certain markets on their YouTube channel. But it seems like the viewership is only for the races. No one really watches any of the other content. Because looking at the other episode numbers so far, yesterday's episode 5, has 1,400 views. Episode 4... Let's see. Episode 4 has 3,000 views. So it feels like it's either people are gonna watch it after the fact, probably, or it's just tailing off because it's not what people are into, despite it being fairly interesting. Maybe if they didn't do it as a quote-unquote live documentary and just released it as an hour-long video at the end, maybe more people would watch it, but it feels like they don't understand what YouTube is, that, like, hey, this sort of content, if it was more personable and less like a Quibi version of And We Go Green.
I didn't think anyone was mentioning Quibi tonight, but I'm glad that you did. As we're now on to the subject of filmmaking, I've got to say, I know we talked about this in the pre-show, but you calling this show Tempelhof Nights, it made me do two things. Number one, it made me rewatch season 1 of Baywatch Nights on YouTube, so thank you for that. Number two, and I'd recommend anyone who hasn't done that, go do it, because take your mind off racing for 5 minutes, and the most crazy network TV series that was ever commissioned. Number two, it made me call my own series of nightly podcasts after the race Berlin Watch. So thank you for that. You gave me an idea there.
No problem. Though, like, it obviously, because the turnaround for 9 Days in Berlin is insane, they pretty much, based on the footage that they use, it's completely edited and then put out there almost like the next day. It's not like And We Go Green, where it's heavily edited and it's very stylistic. Like And We Go Green is a lot better than 9 Days in Berlin.
Hey man, you got to. I think that's a whole part of a spontaneous series in such a freak time. You're only going to be in for 9 days, and you know, if you're going to be there to film everything and insist on calling it 9 Days in Berlin, that implies 9 videos over 9 days, and that
it doesn't imply 9 videos. It doesn't imply.
It kind of does. Like, I mean, look, if you're a YouTube series, you want as much content out there as possible. Like, you know, like especially given how algorithms work these days on YouTube, where they give you more if you give daily content out. I mean, I subscribe to the Bundesliga on YouTube. You know how many top 10s they'll squeeze out of one season? It's ridiculous.
I would say 9 Days in Berlin to me implies a movie where Brad Pitt and/or Steve Carell is a former naval colonel who's imprisoned in a Stasi prison for 9 days. That's what I think.
Oh man,
that's true.
But yeah, like there are situations where pretty much like nothing happens in some episodes, where it's not like they're not telling a story. It's more like, hey, we're just gonna follow this person around for like a couple hours and then put that up on YouTube, like the best 5 minutes we can get out of that.
True.
And it's largely like interviews and ambiance shots, and it's like it puts you in the moment, but you'd like it to be longer than 5 minutes, because at the end of the video, right, it feels like it feels like you're missing out on something, and not in a good way.
Is it like watching the movie trailer then?
Yeah, the slowest and calmest movie trailer imaginable.
I just think Formula E has come a bit closer to, but it hasn't quite found the solution to, the fact that we're still doing sports broadcasting the same way that we were in the 90s, and media has moved on. And I think Formula E needs some new, younger, I mean like Gen Z people to come in and give them a new direction, because to me, like, the last time they tried something genuinely different with their week-to-week presentation was Voltage, and that failed because that was a Gen Xer saying what Gen Zs want to see. Yeah. I think what we need is to get, like, not the 5 million subscriber YouTube influencers, because they don't know anything about motorsport, but get the motorsport influencers in and get them in a room and get them to brainstorm and come up with crazy ideas, because at the moment you've got I think a few people in that building in London making the decisions, and I think there needs to be more, I think we've seen from Positively Charged, there needs to be more consulting out to people who know.
Like, it feels like Formula E really does want to move forward, but they don't know where to go. So they saw, you know, the traction of when And We Go Green was finally released, and like their immediate thought is, how can we do more of that? People like that, let's do more of that. But it's in a format that's not as enjoyable as And We Go Green, because it's shot in the same way. It has the same style of cinematography, of being like very close, intimate, and personable. But like on YouTube, it comes off as over the top and art house, because you're sitting in front of a small video player. You're not, you know, in front of a TV screen. It's a different experience. They're trying to translate a different experience to a different. They're trying to translate the same experience to a different medium, and it doesn't work.
And also, the other problem is that, like, because of I'll explain this really briefly. Because of the way FIA accreditation works, and I know you know this, if you apply for accreditation, you have to say either that you are, you know, photography or your print journalism, your written journalism. And there's no space for like social media creators there. So like, if you want to go to Tempelhof or Diriyah or wherever and make a series of TikToks about the Formula E race, that might actually be a more valid and more attention grabbing and engagement grabbing way of doing it. But you can't do that. You've got to sit in front of your laptop and write a race report, or you say you're a video maker and that's what you do, and you stick to YouTube. You know?
Yeah. It's sort of trying to like. I think the format that Formula E needs is one that doesn't exist at the moment, where you really have to find, only the people in the Formula E office really know what resources are available to them, and you won't be able to know what you can make until you know what the tools that you have in front of you, and pretty much like kind of circling back to Voltage, where I think they had all the tools in place to make a good product for fans, but pretty much made all the wrong choices down the way, mainly because it felt like they didn't know what audience they were going for, and in a certain way, Formula E still has the same problem where it's like we're just gonna try to get something that the most people we can think of would like, and end up in a situation where you alienate a large group of people because you committed hard line to appealing to everybody, that you actually appeal to no one.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah. It was like that was the peak problem I had with Voltage, was because at its core, I'm a motorsport fan. Why do I want to, instead of watching the Formula E race, why would I want to watch the Formula E race in a perspective of someone like KSI, who I know is just making shit up because he doesn't care about the series and is just there to collect the check as an influence? Like, I do not expect guys like Zerka or Bazinga, like we had, or any member of the Sidemen who've done deals or brand deals with Formula E in the past. I had no desire to watch them, who I know don't know an awful lot about the series, to watch them. I would rather sit down with people. Like, a whole idea of a Formula E style goggle box, I think could absolutely work if it was with people that knew what they were talking about. Not guys that are just going to go, oh, big car crash thingy, and, just, go for the generic over-the-top reaction because they're just going to go for that short-term hit of bringing all their Sidemen viewers over.
Because that works. Like, honestly, Dre, we know that format works. Because we've done that format.
Yeah, the difference is we're good at it.
Yeah. And the other thing about Voltage was, like you say, Dre, they picked the wrong people. They picked because what they wanted. I think the mistake they made was the same mistake that I would argue was made with the Virtual Grand Prix. If you had taken a longer view with the Virtual Grand Prix and said, we want people to stick with Formula One for the next few years because they've watched the Virtual Grand Prix, and there shouldn't be any reason why among the Ian Poulters and Biffy Clyros of this world you can't have one Jamie Chadwick or Tatiana Calderon, because that's showing the people who are in the F1 spectrum right now who aren't in a race drive, and it's giving them a chance. And it's also, quite frankly, having a woman on in the race. But I'd argue for various reasons, the F1 fan base and the fact that nobody thought it was a good idea, they didn't do that. And so, the short-term hit of getting celebrities who can bring their millions of fans on, it's great, but it's not going to get people who are going to stick with the sport for a long time.
Yeah, that's why, my biggest sticking point with Voltage being pretty much exactly the same. And at that point in time when Voltage was around, it created this air of, people do in some ways want alternative commentary, but usually it's not from the series itself, because the biggest question in any Voltage chat was, oh, can we watch the race here? Where Formally put themselves in a situation where it's like, this is the only way that you would be able to watch the race online, and guess what, it's commentary only. If they my ideal Voltage format would have been a pre and post race show where it's just a bunch of people talking about the sport in a way that's accessible to everyone, Or maybe you could give the dudes on a couch access to a cutout version of a Formula E car, and explain how it works. Because that's also one of the biggest gaps to people, where there's such cultural knowledge of how combustion cars work. People understand that, it's just there are small booms inside the cylinder and they make the wheels go round. That's simple. People can get that. But with an electric car, there's a lot of disconnect here. They don't understand that it's not the battery that powers the car, that there are motors, and if someone could explain that in a straightforward, entertaining way, and not be condescending about it, people would probably enjoy it.
Yeah, there is this perception that tech doesn't pay, that tech doesn't make the big bucks, and I think it's wrong, because so much of Formula One's mainstream coverage is made up of discussions about brake ducts, as happened last week, and discussions about how medium super soft is going to be different this time because what was the hyper soft last time, and it's stuff that viewers are expected to go along with, and yet for some reason we think that explaining the difference between a single motor and a twin motor powertrain and why the twin motor was banned might be too much for Formula E's viewers. I don't think sometimes they give their viewers enough credit, because they are intelligent people. They're computer savvy people who would understand if they were told.
I think it's both, actually, where Formula E in a way thinks a bit less of their viewers in terms of technical ideas, while in Formula One, it's the same thing. They think less of the fans about it because, they hear fans complaining why all the talk about tires and things like that. And Formula One is just in a situation where it's been around for so long and it's such a television mainstay that it's sort of, in some form, it's gatekeeping, where it's like, oh, if you're not okay with this, just go watch something else then. While Formula E's can't behave like that, where they know that they need as many fans as possible.
Yeah, it's a strange situation where you'd think if you were Formula E, given that your whole idea is the fact that you're not a conventional motorsport series due to the technology you would run, you would think giving yourself a platform to show off how great your technology is would be number one. You think that would be your modus operandi. The fact that racing's pretty darn good is a bonus here. The fact that you do this great racing with electric-powered cars is even better. So you'd think the first port of call would be get a platform to show off why your series is so different, why it's so unique, why it's so innovative, and the quirks behind the technology. I would love to see more of that content on their channel.
And the thing is that,
also get something going for children. Now, teams have tried this, but here's where I think this might happen in the future. On the Extreme E Drivers Program list, so the list of people that teams can pick if they want, is someone called Katie Munnings. Now, unless you've got young kids, you won't know who this is. I haven't, but I just happened to be watching the iPlayer one day. There used to be a show called Katie's Amazing Machines, which is basically Top Gear for 6-year-olds, and she presented it, and she's a professional rally driver. So I think that they are starting, or at least Extreme E is starting, and hopefully Formula E will notice that that's an effective way of doing things. Bring in people with that experience of explaining things to children, and I'm just hoping that maybe we do get like a CBBC Formula E show or something. That would be nice.
Yeah, and it would be good to have a lot more technical discussion, because in the series is fairly open in terms of technical development, but people just assume they're spec cars because all the chassis are the same.
People do assume they're spec cars, and actually the more they outlaw differences on the powertrain, like the twin motor, the closer it gets to a spec car. But there's still more than enough differences you can make with the powertrain for it not to be. And but yeah, as long as we keep highlighting that, it's fine. But at the moment, there's no tech focus in the mainstream coverage. which makes me think.
Yeah, I was
Which
going
makes
to say.
me,
Yeah,
there is a niche for a website to do this. So, someone said today, why don't you write about tech? Maybe I should. Maybe someone should.
Yeah,
to put a case in point, sorry to cut you, King. In the chat, we have a friend of ours, one Lewis Sotheby, who, for those guys who don't know, is one of the social media editors at MotoGP, and he said, straight up, quote, "We deaf people definitely go for the tech stuff. Our fans love it."
Yeah.
Which just kind of says it all, really.
Yeah, and I'd say it's a bit more difficult to write about tech in Formula E, because in Formula 1, a lot of the technical talk revolves around aerodynamics, things that you could easily see. Like, for Formula E, going into the technical side of the sport is a lot more hands-on. You have to do a lot more interviews, you have to talk to a lot more people. You can't just look at a bunch of high-def 4K pictures of Formula 1 cars and just, work out what's working and what's not working.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. But the platform's there for it. The platform is absolutely there for it, and I don't see any reason why they couldn't do that more frequently. There's really good journalists you could pick up for something like this. Just saying.
Mm-hmm.
They might have been guests on this show.
Oh. So,
just throwing that out there.
Yeah, but
yeah.
Before we depart, any closing words, either about anything you're doing right now or the final 2 races we have to look forward to in Berlin?
So I'll do the stuff I'm doing now first, and then the final 2 races, so it doesn't look shameless. The best way to find what I'm doing is to go to motione.org. That's motione, all one word, where you can find an embed to Spotify of the latest podcast and the stuff that I've been writing over the last few days. The podcasts I'm doing, Berlin Watch, are short podcasts after each race, where we basically wrap up what's happened and do some random funny stuff. But usually I have a show called E-Talking, which is available on all audio platforms, where I do something a bit more kind of serious and involved, where I get someone on who knows something and we talk in depth for an hour. So it's a slightly different show what I'm doing, but it's a nice change of pace. On the coming races, I think that Antonio Felix da Costa is not going to want to be complacent, and Jev, and they're not going to want to take their foot off the gas. I think we could see Jev winning one of the races, but I would strongly say that one of them could go to somebody like Van Dorn or Buemi, or someone who's not won yet this season, especially with the circuit being extended and with there being more opportunities for overtaking and or snafus on Wobbly Boy.
Dre?
Yeah, certainly. I can't disagree with that. I wouldn't be surprised if someone like Buemi or Roland, or even, again, Stoffel or one of the Mercedes or the Vries can pull up a W. That would be pretty awesome. You guys know where to find me. I'm on Twitter at Harrison101HD. I did a written piece this morning talking about the British Grand Prix at Silverstone, or should I say the 70th anniversary Grand Prix, so we can charge them for it on Sky without putting it on free-to-air.
Whoa. It is the Emirates 70th anniversary Grand Prix. Don't forget the sponsor.
Rule number 1, don't forget the sponsor, of course. The Emirates 70th anniversary, renaming it like such so we can't put it on free-to-air Grand Prix. So I did a piece on that there. Don't worry, I'm still going to be on Motorsport 101 over the next couple of weeks. Shout out to everyone that's reached out on Twitter over the last day and a half or so. I'm fine, I promise. Just a few new extra 100 Twitter followers does a number on a guy's head every once in a while. And ultimately I want to, just focus on doing what I like to do best, which is entertaining you guys. So cheers guys.
Can I say as well, Dre, fantastic job you've been doing on educating people like me on issues of diversity that we definitely didn't think about in my case before everything that's happened recently. So thank you for that. And also congratulations on the Marquez book as well. It's a fantastic achievement to get a book out.
What book? I have no idea what you're talking
Oh
about.
my
I don't
lord!
know.
I swear, I'll blank you out.
It was Stuart's plug, not mine. I wasn't going to do that. I thought, look, I've seen an opportunity. I'm going to take it.
Oh lord!
But no, I appreciate that, Stuart. That's very kind of you, sir. And look, man, stick around. There'll be plenty more coming, I reckon.
Stuff. I'm now looking for which, actually, I'm thinking probably the Autobio Mortara might be mine. I'm not sure, though.
Yes, a full biography on Edo Motara.
That certainly works.
But, yeah, the next time you'll be seeing us on Tempelhof Nights will be at the end of the week on Friday for review of the last 2 races and a season review. Dre will be back. And we'll be joined by someone that Dre subtly hinted at, Hazel Southwell.
Hey!
By the way, I know you were hinting, but Hazel is brilliant at tech, and I really wish Formula E would use her more on that stuff.
You know,
Yes!
yeah, just get Hazel a lab coat and have her in front of a Formula E car and do some videos.
I'd sub to that on Patreon. Yeah. Hell yeah!
But yep, for Stuart and Dre, it's been a fun time. See you on Friday.
Thank you very much. Take care.
Thanks so much, you guys. Take care.